Lovers of big phones, rejoice! The Huawei Mate 8 is here, and it is a giant, 6-inch phone with fairly good-looking specs sheet, and since there aren't all that many 6-inch devices out there, it might be one of the best options if that size is what you're looking for. But how does it compare against its predecessor, last year's Mate 7? Both being aluminum phones with a sturdy construction, a fingerprint scanner and large batteries, they had more in common than they have differences. Nonetheless, there are some interesting changes, so here are all the differences between the new Huawei Mate 8 and last year's Mate 7. First, the actual body and build quality. Both phones are made out of sturdy aluminum. Some of the press renders for the Mate 8 don't do it justice, though, portraying it as a nearly bezel-less device. While bezels do seem to have become thinner when compared with the Mate 7, they are still there, measuring at around 1.5 mm. In terms of ergonomics, the rather flat back on the Mate 7 has been tweaked to a very slight curve and thinner edges on the Mate 8. The screen on the new phablet is also of the so-called 2.5D variety, meaning that it curves slightly towards the edge. All of this should make the new Mate 8 more comfortable to hold and handle. Huawei has also made a minor change to the fingerprint reader, which is now round rather than square. Then, there are the changes under the hood. Coming to replace the Mate 7's Kirin 925 is another Huawei made system chip, the Kirin 950. The new SoC is made using dual-sourced 14nm/16nm parts, the most advanced currently available technology, and features an octa-core big. Little setup with 4 high-performance Cortex-A72s running at up to 2.3 GHz, and 4 battery-savvy Cortex-A53s clocked at up to 1.8 GHz. This is a huge departure from the now decidedly dated Mate 7 chip, which was a 32-bit affair featuring 4 Cortex-A15s running at a max speed of 1.8 GHz and 4 A7s. Gamers will be more interested in the Mate 8. It's the Mali T880 MP4 clocked at up to 900 MHz. Combined with the comparatively humble 1080p resolution, the push should have no problems dealing with most games. But when you consider the fact that the Mate 8 release date is set for Q1 2016, it will look rather average compared to the upcoming Snapdragon 820 flagships, for instance. The Mate 8 is now offered in 2 versions. The base model has 3 GB of RAM and 32 GB of internal storage, while the higher-end version comes with 4 GB of RAM and 64 GB of storage. The Mate 8 is unveiled as a dual SIM phone in China with support for 2 nano SIM cards, but you can also use the second SIM card slot for microSD cards, so expandable storage is an option. The Mate 7, in comparison, shipped with 3 GB of RAM and 32 GB of storage even in its higher-end model. It also supported microSD storage expansion. Turning over to the cameras, we see a bump from a 13-megapixel sensor on the Mate 7 to a 16-megapixel 1/2.8 Sony IMX298 sensor for the main camera on the Mate 8, and it comes with an f/2.0 lens on top of the stack. At this configuration, pixel size stands at 1.12 microns, which is on the low side and we'll be curious how it performs, particularly in low light. The front camera on the Mate 8 now has an 8-megapixel resolution, up from 5 megapixels on its predecessors, which should translate into more detailed selfies. Interestingly, the battery of the Mate 8 is now lower than what we had in the Mate 7, 4000 mAh versus 4100 mAh. The reason behind such downgrades usually involves more power-efficient displays and processors, so despite the decline in actual size, we don't expect any significant decrease in actual battery life. With all this in mind, it's clear that the Mate 8 brings a fairly substantial upgrade under the hood and on the camera side, while remaining a very modest change in terms of outwards appearance. Would you upgrade to the new Huawei 6-inch phablet?